Shalak Yakshurunmilitam Yena Tashmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Vandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Mataji. So if someone would like to read the text, please, Mataji, and then I'll come on with you in a minute. Yes, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for the wonderful Mangalacharan recital. We are now starting a new chapter, chapter 16. Chapter 16 is how Parikshit received the age of Kali. And today we'll start with text 1. Would anybody like to read the text 1? The Sanskrit, the translation, and the purport? Okay, maybe I can read the text.
Mataji, I think my laptop is making a problem. I'm just going to log off and come back again in a second. Yes, whilst you read the text, yeah.
Okay, Mataji.
Thank you.
So, chapter 16, text 1. Canto 1, chapter 16, text 1. Sutta Vacha Tatha Parikshit Divya Varna Shikshaya Mahim Mahabhagvata Sasaha Yatahi Sutyam Abhijata Kovidha Samadhinsha Vipra Mahatgunashtatha. Sutta Vacha. Sutta Goswami said, Tatha, thereafter, Parikshit, Maharaj Parikshit, Dvija Varna, the great twice-born Brahmanas, Shikshaya, by their instructions, Mahim, the earth, Mahabhagavata, the great devotee, Sasasa, ruled, Ha, in the past, Yatha, as they told it, He, certainly, Sutyam, at the time of birth, Abhijata Kovidha, expert astrologers at the time of birth. Samadhishan gave their opinions. Vipra, O Brahmanas. Mahatguna, great qualities. Tatha, true to that. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, learned Brahmana, Maharaj Parikshit then began to rule over the world as a great devotee of the Lord under the instructions of the best of the twice-born Brahmanas. He ruled by those great qualities which were foretold by expert astrologers at the time of his birth. Purport. At the time of Maharaj Parikshit's birth, the expert astrologer, Brahmanas, foretold some of his qualities. Maharaj Parikshit developed all those qualities, being a great devotee of the Lord. Real qualification is to become a devotee of the Lord, and gradually all good qualities worthy of possession develops. Maharaj Parikshit was a Mahabhagavata, or a first-class devotee, who was not only well versed in the science of devotion, but also able to convert others to become devotees by his transcendental instructions. Maharaj Parikshit was therefore a devotee of the first order, and thus he used to consult great sages and learned brahmanas who could advise him by the Shastras how to execute the state administration. Such great kings were more responsible than modern elected executive heads because they obliged the great authorities by following their instructions left in the Vedic literature. There was no need for the impractical fools to enact daily a new legislative bill and to conveniently alter it again and again to serve some purpose. The rules and regulations were already set forth by the great sages like Manu, Yajnavalkya, Parashara, and other liberated sages, and the enactments were all suitable for all ages in all places. Therefore, the rules and regulations were standard and without flaw or defect. Kings like Maharaj Parikshit and their council of advisors and all the members of that council were either great sages or brahmanas of the first order. They did not accept any salary, nor had they any necessity for such salary. The state would get the best advice without expenditure. They were themselves samadarshi, equal to everyone, both man and animal. They would advise the king to give protection to man and instruct him to kill the poor animals. Such council members were not fools or representatives to compose a fool's paradise. They were all self-realized souls, and they knew perfectly well how all living beings in the state would be happy, both in this life and in the next. They were not concerned with the hedonistic philosophy of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. They were philosophers in the real sense, and they knew well what is the mission of human life. Under all these obligations, the advisory council of the king would give correct directions, and the king or executive head, himself a qualified devotee of the Lord, would scrutinizingly follow them for the welfare of the state. The state in the days of Maharaja Yudhishthira or Maharaja Parikshit was a welfare state in the real sense of the term because no one was unhappy in that state, be he man or animal. Maharaj Parikshit was an ideal king for the welfare state of the world. Hare Krishna.
Hi, good morning.
Hare Krishna, over to you.
I think I'm on mute. Thank you very much, Mataji. So with your permission and with the blessings of all devotees, I will try to share a bit on this beautiful verse. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do the service to all of you, to Krishna, to Radha Krishna, and to all of you. If I do make any mistakes, please do correct me. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurani Pacharine Nivisheshu Nivadi Pashata Deshitayane Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Thank you. As you rightly said, Mataji, so we are starting another beautiful chapter. So we've just finished chapter 15, and we've ended the chapter, the last chapter, with the knowledge that the Pandavas, including the Draupadi and Subhadra, after learning about the departure of Lord Krishna from this material world, they also decided not to remain in this material world anymore. They were devastated initially, but later on, again, them being very, very highly elevated devotees, they were self-realized as well, and they decided to go back to Godhead and leave this material world. So we see how first Yudhishthira Maharaj decided to do that, and following him, his brothers did so, as did Draupadi and Subhadra. And we've also learned from senior devotees before how Draupadi and Subhadra, they actually reached the spiritual world even before their husbands did. So they were all there. So we end the chapter with the knowledge that Yudhishthira Maharaj, ever so responsible, even whilst leaving the material world, he ensured that it was his kingdom was in the hands of someone as befitting to be a king as he himself. And so he put Parikshit Maharaj on the throne as he departed his kingdom, and also knowing the fact that the Yadu dynasty was almost demolished. There was hardly anybody left in the Yadu dynasty. He put Vajra, he was the son of Anirudh, so Lord Krishna's grandson. He put him on the throne of Mathura, which was the capital of the Suryasena area, Suryasena region. So with these knowing that, now the two kingdoms, both the Yadavas, the Yadu dynasty, the kingdom, the people over there, as well as the people in his kingdom, were now secure and are being ruled by two very, very, befitting kings, the Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they left. So this is how chapter 15 ended. And chapter 16 starts with Parikshit Maharaj, and how Parikshit Maharaj, so it describes, the whole chapter talks about a lot of things about Parikshit Maharaj. In the previous chapters, we have come to know about the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, how he was attacked by, does anyone remember who attacked him whilst he was still in his mother's womb after the Kurukshetra war? Ashwatthama. So he was attacked with the Brahmastra, and how Lord Krishna in his Vishnu form, he protected Parikshit Maharaj in his womb. He entered the womb and protected Parikshit Maharaj, and how Parikshit Maharaj had the vision of Vishnu, going around in the womb with his Sudarshan Chakra and protecting him. So when he came out, he would ask everybody and look for Krishna everywhere, trying to remember that image of Krishna, hence giving him the name, because he was questioning all the time, hence giving him the name Parikshit. So we've come to know of Parikshit Maharaj a bit previously. We've also come to know of Parikshit Maharaj a bit because the whole Srimad Bhagavatam starts with him. Had it not been for him wanting to know about the purpose of life, had it not been for him wanting to devote the last 7 days of his life not to say anything else, but purely and entirely to advance in devotion, in bhakti towards Krishna, we would not have got the Srimad Bhagavatam. So from that, we understand that Parikshit Maharaj is a great devotee. And being a great devotee, you have the thirst of knowing even more and more and more about Krishna. And the more you learn about Krishna, rather than quenching your thirst, it actually makes you feel more thirsty, because that is the sign of a great devotee. And that is what Parikshit Maharaj felt. He wanted to know more and more and more about Krishna, even not eating or drinking during those 7 days. So this much we already know about Parikshit Maharaj as we come into this chapter. And from the first verse, we also know, we are also told that he was a great devotee, not just a great devotee, as we already know from before, but what we will also know from today. But he also ruled his kingdom very well, very fairly, very well. So there are two parts to this verse. The first part talks about Parikshit Maharaj being a great devotee, the Mahabhagavat. And the second part of the verse talks about how Parikshit Maharaj ruled his kingdom. So we'll take up each part by part. There are quite a few things to talk about in this verse, so I'm going to, I don't think we'll be able to do justice to everything, but I'll share whatever little way I'm able to. If there are any mistakes, please do correct me. There are quite a few, lots of senior devotees, so do correct me if I'm going wrong anywhere. So first of all, we learned that, the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami talks about the three types of devotees, the Uttama Adhikari, the Madhyam Adhikari, and the Kanishta Adhikari. And our teachers and our preachers over the weeks and over the days, we have heard the definitions of these three types of devotees. In the verse, we are told that Parikshit Maharaj is a Mahabhagavat, a first-class devotee, a top-class devotees, the most advanced devotees. So very quickly, a very quick recap of anyone who remembers who a Kanishta Adhikari is in one sentence. This is very quickly. So remember, it's a Kanishta. We are defining this person as a Kanishta devotee. So it's not just a man. So this person is already a devotee, but a Kanishta devotee of the lowest type. So someone who may worship a deity, but someone who's not very, very strong in their faith, and may have their faith, if someone comes and tells him something else, to worship the demigod or worship someone else or tell something about Krishna, their faith can very easily waver. So they do know there's a God, they would do the deity worship, but their faith is not as strong. And their faith does waver. So that's a Kanishta Adhikari, where their understanding of Krishna, understanding of the absolute truth, is at its very, very minimum. So this is just defining Kanishta Adhikari in one sentence, because we've done this in details previously. A Madhyam Adhikari is someone who understands who Krishna is, who understands who we are, what our relation is with Krishna. But this is someone who actually makes a difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. So we hear from Krishna that Krishna is impartial. Krishna as the absolute truth, the father of the seed-giving father to all. He's impartial to all his children. He may have some preference for his devotees, because his devotees, just like children who give more attention, as we were saying the other day, children who give attention to their parents more. The parents, although they love all their children equally, sometimes they tend to give more attention to the children who give them more love. It is because Krishna is so very personal. Krishna is not impersonal. Krishna is very, very personal. You give love to Krishna, Krishna gives love to you. That is how personal he is. That is the whole basis of Krishna consciousness, the personal feeling of Krishna consciousness. So the devotee, a Madhyam Adhikari, understands the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. And the Madhyam Adhikari is not impartial. like Krishna would want everybody to be impartial, just like he is impartial. A Madhyamadikari would differentiate between a devotee and a non-devotee and would treat them in a different way. But he is still a devotee. He would still be able to go out and he would still try to instill the love for Krishna in others. So that is a good quality of the Madhyamadikari. When we, again, this is defining in one sentence, and then we come to Uttamadikari, who is the ideal devotee of Krishna, because he is impartial. He looks at, whether it's a devotee, non-devotee, a human being, animal, trees. He looks at every soul as the same. There is no difference. He is impartial towards all. And he thinks of all of them as children of God. And not only that, he is also very capable of convincing, not in a very, very rigid way or in a forceful way, but in a very sweet and Krishna conscious way. He's able to perfectly instill the love for Krishna and love of Krishna in someone else. So that is the quality of an Uttam Adhikari. So because he himself is so much in the transcendental platform, and his love for Krishna is so pure and so automatic and so natural, and he's so self-realized that the good qualities automatically come to him. As acharyas say that, why do we want to become a bhakt? Why do we want to become a devotee? Because by becoming a devotee, we automatically, because our hearts are getting cleansed, we automatically acquire good qualities, because our true self is pure. It is as such, we are as Satchidananda as Krishna himself, but it's just that we are covered with material dirt. So when we start our process of bhakti, that dirt starts getting clean, and we acquire those good qualities automatically come to us. So that is the reason pure devotees always want others to become devotee as well. And as we become devotees, as more and more people become devotees, those good qualities in people becomes naturally. And then, and that is how the Vedic culture, the Vedic times, they existed, because people were full of good qualities, and there was peace everywhere. There was, there was no kind of fighting, but we'll come to that later in the verse. So, as I said, in the Nectar of the Instruction, Rupa Goswami talks about these three types, and Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the verse and the purport mentions that Parikshit Maharaj, as a person, he was a Mahabhagavat. That means he was an Uttama devotee, he was a topmost devotee, a very, very advanced and first-class devotee. So then, when we talk about a devotee, how do we define a devotee? We've just given a technical definition of a Uttama devotee, but we've just said a few minutes ago that Krishna is very personal. Yes, there is all the philosophy. Yes, there is all the theories of how to become a devotee. But who actually is a devotee? Do we define them? Yes, we have defined a devotee by we can say that these tick boxes are ticked. So technically, this makes a good devotee. And we have just mentioned a couple of things. But the Goswamis and the Acharyas go further in defining a devotee, and there are books and many literatures, including the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, where we see examples after examples of true devotees. And how do we establish that they are devotees? We establish that they are true devotees of Krishna because Krishna loves them. Because we see how Krishna responds to them, and because Krishna responded to them in the most personal way, in a definite way, we establish that these people must be pure devotees, whether it is the Ambarish Maharaj, whether it's, Prahlad Maharaj, or whether if it is even Gajendra, who was a devotee in his previous life and Krishna still remembered. So this reciprocation of love from Krishna defines that, who a true devotee is. We've heard about the Brihad Bhagavatam. The Brihad Bhagavatam, has anyone heard about the Brihad Bhagavatam? So this is Parikshit Maharaj after the 7 days, in the very few, the very little time left between him after Sukdev Goswami completed talking about Srimad Bhagavatam to him, and before him leaving this material body, where his mother comes to meet him. And Parikshit Maharaj tells her the Brihad Bhagavatam, and where there are different stages of devotees defined, where first the first part, Narad Muni goes and tries to find out who the pure devotee is, and in the second part, Gopa Kumar tries to find out, where he will find the true devotees. And in both, we come to the realization, once again, as we have learned in all our Krishna class sessions, how the gopis are the purest and the truest devotees of Krishna. And how do we know that? Because we don't read about the gopis much. We don't, but we just hear about the gopis from how Krishna responds to them, how other devotees talk about them. We hear how in the Gopi Geet, in the 10th canto, how when Krishna actually leaves the gopis, because the gopis got a bit proud, and Krishna decides, where there is pride, love does not exist. And that is another sign of a Mahabhagavat. When you are a true devotee, you are not proud. You don't establish you don't say that I'm a true devotee. There is no ego. Where there is true love, there is no ego. There is no sense of pride. But if we see, when we, if we jump forward to the Ras Leela, the gopis got a bit proud, and Krishna decided to leave them just to make them realize that they were not right. And the gopis, that sense of separation, they were angry with Krishna because they had the right. That is how they treated Krishna. Krishna to them was not the supreme personality of Godhead. Krishna to them was their son, their lover, their friend. So they were angry, but even beyond their anger, it was the worry for Krishna. The love for Krishna overtook even their anger. They were asking, whilst looking for Krishna, they came across Tulsi Maharani, and they were saying, "Oh, Mother Tulsi, you are always in the feet of Krishna. Our Krishna gets so happy when you're offered to his feet. So you are always on his feet. So you know where the feet of Krishna has gone. Please, can you tell us where the feet of Krishna is, so that we can follow and find him?" So that is the gopis. We see that, and Krishna could not remain hidden from them for long. I mean, Radharani, he had left Radharani as well, and although he took the Vishnu form to hoodwink the gopis for a bit, as soon as Radharani came, he went back to his two-hand form. So the gopis, and especially Radharani, we see that Krishna is defeated by their love. In the story, or in the case of Ambarish Maharaj, we see how Krishna tells Durvasa Muni. Does anyone remember the famous line that he says about his devotee? So he says that Aham Bhakta Paradina, meaning I am completely under the control of my devotee. So Durvasa Muni, you have come to me because my Sudarshan Chakra is following you to kill you because you had not been very nice to my devotee Ambarish. But trust me, I have absolutely no power to stop the Sudarshan Chakra from harming you, because you have been not very nice to my devotee, and unless and until my devotee says it's okay, I will not be able to take back that Sudarshan Chakra. So Krishna himself declares that I am completely under the control of my devotee, and he further goes on. This is in Canto 9, 9.4.63, but in verse 68, Krishna also says to Durvasa Muni that the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart. And this is Prabhupada's words in translating the verse. He says, the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anything else but them. That is a pure devotee. And this is Krishna telling Durvasa Muni. And this is who Uttam Adhikari devotee is, a Mahabhagavat is. So when Prabhupada says in the purport, Parikshit Maharaj was a Mahabhagavat, the most advanced devotee, we immediately understand that in Parikshit Maharaj, we have a devotee who lives only for Krishna, and that is reciprocated. He is for Krishna and Krishna is for him. Krishna is for all those devotees who put him in front of everything else. So so there are so many such pure devotees. The spiritual world, as we know, is 75%. So that's full of pure devotees. There may be gradation in their love for Krishna, and culminating in the love that gopis have for Krishna. But there are so many pure devotees, and when they actually come to this to the material world, they come with a purpose. They come to serve Krishna even more, and they come to instill the love of Krishna in others, as Parikshit Maharaj also does, and as is defined as one of the qualities that this verse says. Now, then we hear about how Parikshit Maharaj, as a Mahabhagavat, one of the qualities is that, yes, you have this pure love for Krishna, that unending ahaituki apratihata love, unmotivated and continuous love, as is defined in the second chapter. So it is continuous. Love for Krishna is continuous, and it is unmotivated, unconditional. So we understand that Parikshit Maharaj had that kind of love for Krishna. But the other quality of a Mahabhagavat, as is defined in this verse, is that he was also able to instill the love of Krishna to others. And in this case, the people he ruled, the people in his kingdom. Now we have our whole ISKCON started because of such a Mahabhagavat. Had Srila Prabhupada not been able to instill the love of Krishna in others, ISKCON would not have happened. We wouldn't have been here reading such beautiful books, knowing about Krishna. So we can see, even in our lifetime, we can see what to talk about, ages and ages ago. We can see how this is so much possible. And I was listening to a class the other day, and where Prabhuji was saying that such great devotees, when they are able to do great things, especially when they're able to instill the love of Krishna in others, they do it themselves because they love Krishna so much, so they want others to love Krishna as much as well. But they are also empowered by Krishna. Had it not been for the empowerment, they would not have been able to do that. So when people talk, when people try to do things, sometimes even with the best of intentions, people might want to say something, but it may be perceived in a completely wrong way by the audience. But where you have that empowerment and that support from Krishna, whatever, when you speak to others, when you want to share Krishna consciousnness with others, Krishna empowers you so that the audience is, they take that advice. Now, as we have come into Kali Yuga, maybe that is not applicable all the time, but in its purest form, that is what does happen. And even in Srila Prabhupada's case, we have seen, even despite being faced with so many barriers, so many challenges, he was still able to make people or souls who were completely, very much against Krishna consciousness, or very different or completely different to Krishna conscious culture, Prabhupada was able to, instill that love for Krishna in them, and they became the pure devotees of Prabhupada and of Krishna and of Radharani. So Parikshit Maharaj is being described as such a person, a Mahabhagavat, who is not just a pure devotee of Krishna, but is also able to give that or share that love of devotees with his with the people in his kingdom, and hence, because as we were discussing just a while ago, as soon as you become a devotee of Krishna, when you become when you become a devotee, the good qualities automatically start shining again inside you, and so people are happier, people are nicer towards each other. And this was pre-Kali Yuga, this was pre-Kali. As soon as Kali came in, we know the main, does anyone know the main things that Kali brought in? I mean, obviously, Parikshit Maharaj, as we have heard, he asked Kali to reside in only 4 places, and we'll come to know about it later. But with the advent of Kali Yuga, we saw falsity coming in place. We see people cheating each other. We see violence. We see avarice and greed for material senses. So this was not present at the time. So when Parikshit Maharaj was sharing Krishna consciousness with his with the people of his kingdom, that Krishna consciousness was being taken in the purest form, and people were already good and they were becoming even better. So then that is the influence of a Mahabhagavat, that is the influence of a pure devotee. Okay? So the first part of the verse talks about how Parikshit Maharaj was a pure devotee. And then we conclude this part by before moving on to the second part of this verse, by discussing about how important this role of a Mahabhagavat is in how they are able to convince someone of loving Krishna, so much so that even God himself, when he hears about himself from his devotees, he starts loving himself. So he says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that, Krishna's Kaviraj, he mentions how Krishna loves to hear about himself from the gopis. So when the Krishna loves it more when the gopis are happy in serving him, because seeing the gopis happy, Krishna feels happy, and the gopis become even more happy by seeing Krishna happy. So it's a kind of two-way thing. But when Krishna sees that how much the gopis love him and how much the gopis are helping others love Krishna, that makes him fall in love with him even more. And we see even in the pastime of Mahaprabhu, where King Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, and how he was a great devotee and he wanted to meet Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu didn't want to meet him because obviously he didn't want to get involved or be attached with a man of the world, that to a king who was, involved in so many in politics and so many other things. So he wanted to stay away from that. He just wanted to be in his pure and keeping in mind that he was actually teaching about being an ideal sannyas. So he didn't really want to meet Prataparudra. But his devotees, his followers, they knew what a great devotee Prataparudra was. So they kind of said, okay, fine. There's only, you really can't, if Mahaprabhu has said you can't meet him, you really can't meet him. The only way what you can do is try some way to please Mahaprabhu in some way without meeting him, and see if you can convince him to meet you. So there are quite a few pastimes, and also, him sweeping the floor during Rath Yatra in front of the Rath, so that, Mahaprabhu would notice him. But even prior to that, what he did was, where Mahaprabhu used to stay, there was a garden, and he went and he used to sing the Gopi Geet every day. Now, the Gopi Geet, we know, as we were referring, it's a Geet, it's a song of separation, because the gopis were missing Krishna when he left them after the Rasa Leela. So he used to sing the Gopi Geet every day. Mahaprabhu heard it the first day. He loved it, he loved it. He didn't say anything. He said, who was maybe one of my followers. Happened the second day. So each day, King Prataparudra would sing an extra verse. So each day he would sing that, and he would sing it really nicely, and then he would leave. And then Mahaprabhu had still not met him. And then he went to the 9th verse, on the 9th verse, and he was singing, Tava katam ritam tapta jivanam kavibhira idatam kalmasapaham, meaning, the nectar of your words, meaning Krishna's words. This is the gopis' words to Krishna. So the gopis are telling Krishna, oh Krishna, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and the soul of those who are suffering in this material world. So King Prataparudra sang that. He went to the 9th, he sang the whole Gopi Geet, came to the 9th verse, and he was singing and singing this and beautifully. And Mahaprabhu could not keep himself. He just came out and he embraced the king. And that's how the king met him. So here we see even God listening about him, listening about a devotee, trying to talk to about singing his praise. Even God himself gets attracted about himself. So we can understand what a big role the Mahabhagavat plays in trying to tell the others about the beautiful, about just Krishna, about his activities, about how he looks, about his pastimes, and how that automatically makes the listeners fall in love with Krishna, because Krishna is the all attractive. There is no way, even with the best of intentions, there is no way, if you have an open heart, you will not be able to escape that attractiveness of Krishna. And that is the quality of Maharaj Parikshit. That is the quality of all the Uttam Adhikaris. So then we come to the second part of the verse, where we hear that Maharaj Parikshit, he was not only a great devotee, but he was a very, very responsible devotee as well. And he was a very, very responsible ruler and king. So we've heard, nowadays we see the rulers or the government or the people in charge, they make their own rules. Yes, there is the constitution in every country, But you see, for many selfish reasons, they are tweaked. They are, people make their own rules. There's a lot of things that's happening where people do not stick to the rules. Now, these are rules laid down in Kali Yuga. These are not eternal rules. But what Maharaj Parikshit did was, despite of him being a true devotee, he also took advice of great sages, great Brahmins, self-realized souls. He understood that such self-realized souls would be able to give him true advice based on Vedic instructions. Now, the rules and the laws laid in the Vedic instructions, they were eternal instructions. They were for all times. They did not depend on time or place or circumstance. They were eternal laws defined by great, first coming from Krishna himself, and then later on you find in many smritis, in the Manu Smriti, in Parashar Smriti, or in Yajnavalkya Smriti, where these great sages, they laid out the rules, the do's and the don'ts of what needs to be done in society, in every sector of life, in every single thing. So this is how the Vedic society and the Vedic instructions came to establish to establish the fact that if this is followed, there would be dharma would be established, and there would be peace, and when the Varnashram system was established, that came not to make people higher or lower. That did not talk about higher castes or lower castes, but people were put into different varnas because so that they can work together in different abilities to make the system work perfectly. So whether it's the Varnashram system, whether it's other instructions or laws given in the Vedic rules and the laws defined, that was independent of time or place or circumstance. And the great sages or the great Brahmins, they advised kings, the kings who understood that this needed to be maintained. They helped these kings or they advised these kings. So similarly, Parikshit Maharaj listened to great sages, and Prabhupada mentions in his purport that he also had a council of such great sages, and he listened from them. So we also understand that Parikshit Maharaj was so humble. I mean, even being such a great devotee, I mean, he could have said, I know it all, so I would rule as I want to. But yet he bowed down to the advice given to him by the gurus, by the Brahmins and sages. So we see another quality of Parikshit Maharaj, of how humble he was, but also how intelligent he was, because he knew such great sages will only advise him what is the best. And Prabhupada also mentions such advice in those times, they came for free. People did not charge you a salary for being your advisor. So it was because these Brahmins or these great sages, they were self-realized souls. They knew what the truth was, and they wanted to impart to the king and to his kingdom, to the people in his kingdom. They wanted to impart the knowledge of true happiness. And the purport describes true happiness, not just in this world, but also in their next life, be it if they come back to the material life again, or if they want to go back to Godhead. So they talk about happiness in eternal time, not just in temporary time. We see in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita how Krishna tells Arjuna that, happiness and suffering, they are like the seasons. They come and go, they come and go. They are not permanent, but in this material world. So these great sages, when they advised of happiness, or they advised of something, the way of life in a kingdom, they advise people, we all live for happiness. That's the main thing we are living for. That's the main thing we want. And their advice is based on happiness for eternity, not just in this life, but also in the next life. And I'm going to rush now, so just looking at the time. So Prabhupada also mentioned two other things. He says that these great sages, they did not believe in the hedonistic style of living, of just eat, drink, sleep, and be merry. That is what the people of Kali Yuga, people who are full of sense gratification, people who just live for the moment. But Prabhupada says, such people who live such hedonistic lives, they live in a fool's paradise. And who are these fools, and what is their paradise? So these fools, these are people who take the temporary to be permanent, and who think, oh, we have happiness now, and that is going to be permanent, without being so ignorant that without having even the slightest of knowledge to understand that there might be some impending danger in the near future. We don't know what is going to happen to us tomorrow or the next second. If we know, we have the knowledge that if Krishna is with us, everything good is going to happen. There is nothing bad. Whatever Krishna does for us, it's for the best. And we know Krishna telling us over and over in the Shastras, in Bhagavad Gita, so many times that, my devotees never perish. We see how Prahlad Maharaj, even being thrown into the mouth of death so many times, survived every single time, only because he had complete faith in Krishna. So as wanting to be devotees, I can only speak for myself. So what we have to think is that, yes, we need to keep our faith in Krishna. And if we have our faith in Krishna, nothing can go wrong. And whatever happens to us, even if we are going through something bad, that is our prarabdha. That is something we deserve, but Krishna is minimizing it by being with us in our difficulties and helping us to overcome those difficulties. But these fools, because they live in their own fool's paradise, they are devoid of this faith in Krishna, and they are devoid of the understanding that there can be, that tomorrow can be completely different. So what Prabhupada is trying to highlight is the ignorance of such people. And he's contrasting that with the complete knowledge of Parikshit Maharaj. So at one end, we have the Mahabhagavat, who himself having the total knowledge, and yet taking the advice of other great sages. And whereas on the other hand, we have people nowadays who make laws just for their own selfish reasons, and those laws are very, very, based upon what time, laws which existed in our parents' time. That has changed now, and that is not applicable now, because they are not eternal laws. They are not, but that is not the case of the Vedic laws. The Vedic laws are permanent. They are for eternity. and they tell us of how to maintain a world or a universe in complete perfectness. If we maintain that, if we listen to that, and that is what Parikshit Maharaj wanted for his kingdom. So even himself being a pure devotee and with the complete knowledge, he took advice from the great sages and the great Brahmins, and even bettered in becoming a wonderful, wonderful king. So in this introductory verse of the 16th chapter, we build on the knowledge of what we already know of Parikshit Maharaj up until now. We learn a bit more about Parikshit Maharaj being the pure devotee, and who a pure devotee is: someone who puts Krishna before him or her, someone where Krishna's happiness is more to them than their happiness, someone who is not just loves Krishna, but Krishna loves them more, so much so that Krishna is defeated by them. Someone who loves Krishna so much that they are able to inspire the love of Krishna in other people's hearts. And someone who himself or herself, being knowledgeable enough, is humble enough to take the advice of great devotees. So with this, I conclude my discussion over here. If there are any mistakes, please do correct me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for this nectarian class. It was excellent. Are there any, I am cognizant of the time. We have just 3 more minutes left, but I'm sure we can take a question or two or a comment. Any questions or comments? We had new devotees who had joined this group, but I think they've probably left now. But we would like them to join again. But we can welcome them in their absentia. So if they had to look at the recording, then they probably would hear us welcoming them. I think there was Saina Thakkar, Ritu Kaushik comes, but there was another devotee also that was new to the group. So let us welcome them. So let us chant the Hari Bol 3 times. Hari Bol.
Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? I just would like to comment, Mataji, that in Krishna consciousness, it's so beautiful that when you love Krishna, you want to share him with everybody. Especially in this material world, when you love somebody, you don't want to share them with anybody. But with Krishna consciousness, any small thing, even if it is prasadam, even if it is a beautiful flower, even if it is any small thing, you want to share and give it to more and more people. So I think this is a wonderful process. And thank you very much for this wonderful.
And that is the reason Krishna says that I'm under the control of my devotees. I mean, if you think about it very quickly, if you think about, why Bhagavad Gita was never spoken in Vraj, in Gokul, because nobody would believe that boy, they would say, oh, what our Lala, this little boy who actually gets, frightened when there's thunder outside and comes to his mom. That person, that little boy is the absolute personality of Godhead. Nobody would believe that. If Krishna wanted a little bit of butter, the gopis would make him dance and only then give him butter. Krishna's friends would say, Krishna, your mother is calling. Krishna says, I have to go home, my mom is calling. And the gopas would say, okay, no, you have to stay. If you go back home, if you come tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to take part in our game. And Krishna would be scared and he would stay with the gopas. So nobody would believe that this Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead. So the Bhagavad Gita had to be said outside of Raj. But that is why we see that how Krishna, when there are pure devotees, Krishna would do anything for them. Krishna used to carry the slippers of Nanda Maharaj on his head. that is how much he loved them. So he would do anything for his devotees. And that is how we understand. It's the definition of the Mahabhagavats, or the definition of an Uttama Adhikari. It comes not from just sentences or just defining characteristics. It comes from how Krishna has reciprocated to them, and we understand that they are great devotees because Krishna loves them so much.
Thank you so much. If there are no more questions or comments, can I request Prashanatma Prabhu, is it possible for you to end the session today? Or Prahlad Prabhu? Anybody with a stable internet? Prahlad Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's quite noisy on my end, so
Okay.
I don't know whether I can close.
Hear you properly.
Yes, okay. So first I would like to start off by thanking Her Grace Panchali Mataji for giving us this wonderful class. Thank you, Mataji, for this wonderful session. The journey is quite long throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. I missed a few chapters here and there due to my exams, but then I finally caught up to where all of you are, thanks to the YouTube channel. So I would also like to thank Kirtika Mataji for that. So I would like to kindly request all the devotees assembled to please unmute yourselves and let's chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once for Her Grace Panchali Mataji. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare. Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha
kalpatarubhyasya
Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai. Her Grace Panchali Mataji ki Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji and Mataji.
Iskon Eldoret ki
Jai.
Jai. Sai Gaur Premanande. Hare
Thank
Hare
you.
Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji and Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.